Communication. Such a simple thing, yet people are struggling with it. I am one of those people who are struggling with communication. Now let's start from the beginning. What is communication? In my thoughts, communication is conveying your ideas, speaking to other people, letting them know what you're thinking, what is in your mind. I think the truest and purest form of communication is body language, as well as speaking from your mind. Not in a way where you overthink, you formulate the sentence over and over again until you're satisfied with the sentence and then you speak. No. What I mean by that is whatever comes up from your brain, you speak out loud. I think that's the purest way of communication. Now, why are people struggling with it? Why? I think one of which is people are conditioned at a young age where not only parents, teachers, but maybe their elderlies, they tend to tell their kids to think before you speak. And of course, that itself does have some value, but it does create a restriction it blocks the trait of thinking and sort of restrain them from their own freedom of communicating. I think that is one of the most common issues which leads to bad communication. Now, what are the examples of bad communication? We have social anxiety, not having the fear of speaking with someone else, having the fear of speaking with strangers, people that you don't know, or speaking with a facade, a man pleaser, a people pleaser, speaking in a way where you want to earn a favor from them, speaking in a way where you want to be speaking in a way where you want to avoid being disliked by them. That is what stopped us from communicating in the most efficient way. Now, how do we communicate efficiently? In my opinion, we should just speak out the things that we want to say. Just say the things you want to say. Say the things that you want to say. If you have a question, just ask. If you have a statement, just say it. If you disagree with someone, just point it out. One of the biggest reasons why people tend to avoid this, I think it's pride. People don't like to be corrected by someone else. People don't like to be wrong. Pride is what stops us from being our true self. That's what I believe. That's why I think people should let go. People are scared of asking stupid questions. People are scared of making mistakes. People grow the most by making mistakes. By avoiding yourself from making mistakes, you also avoid yourself from growing. So hence why you're suffering from issues like social anxiety, unable to communicate, stuff like that. How to solve this? Well, you should start letting go of your pride. At least that's my approach. Start letting go of your pride. Start being tolerant in an awkward state. Yes, it will be very awkward at the start, but you should build tolerance for the awkwardness. As someone who has been through many awkward and cringe experience, I've came to build tolerance for it. Of course, now I still do feel cringe, but not as severe as before. I hate the idea of cringe, the very idea of cringe and awkwardness. It really sets people apart, in my opinion. It stops people from being who they really are. What's the opposite? Let's think of this in another way around. What's the opposite of cringe? Not cringe, cool, aura farming, sigma male, nonchalant. I'd say these are what people strive to be, unironically. And ironically, it makes them more cringe. So stop. You should just be yourself. Just speak whatever comes to your mind. And whenever you have any opinions that are different from others, show it. Show it that you have different opinion from others. It not only creates variety, it just makes you more attractive in general. I like people who have different opinions than me. Of course, people who have the same opinions of course, not to say that I hate people who have the same opinions as me, but variety makes people grow. Mistakes makes people grow. And that's really important as human beings. I've encountered many people ever since I started college. I've encountered many people, especially people from our class. Now, if you're my friend from our class, I think you would know what I'm talking about here. Some of the students that I've met, they just don't. I would say they are people pleasers. They just don't say out their opinions. They would just follow everything you say, whether they are happy or not, they would just not speak out their mind. And I find that very hard to accept, because you are hurting yourself. Stop hurting yourself. You shouldn't do this to yourself. You shouldn't restrain yourself. Why are you doing this? You guys need to let go. Let go of that pride. Let go of that image. It makes me really sad that not being able to speak freely, not being able to communicate, and I know that it is easier said than done. It is easier said than done. But the mental and the train of thought is important. You have to set, you have to let it go. Honestly, let go of your pride. Let go of your people pleaser attitude. Like, what can you possibly lose? You would lose a couple friends that probably not meant to be your friend if you're being your true self. I would say that's a plus. You would, honestly, I don't see a lot of downside of you just speaking your mind. Maybe you would come off as arrogant. Of course, if you were to come off as arrogant, I think you would be able to receive feedback, but that's a problem for another day. I would rather you to be arrogant than I would rather you to be very talkative, very straightforward, no filter, but arrogant. I wouldn't call that as arrogant. I will talk about this later. I'd rather you to be over talkative, zero filter, rather than you just being quiet and not saying things that you want to say. That's what I rather have. Now, speaking of arrogant, what comes across as arrogant? One perfect example is a content creator called Parrot Software. Let me give you some background. He is someone that tells people, misleads people about various things regarding computer science or anything in general, or his background. He introduced himself as a software engineer, as a hacker, working for the USA federal government, and he would use that to back up everything he says, which in the end turns out to be false. He would say, I couldn't pull out an example, but he would say things about programming doubles down on his own opinion that are false, factually false, and tell other people that they are wrong, saying his opinion is correct, which is false. That would be arrogant. That is called arrogant. You thinking yourself to be a god, having a god complex, you thinking that you are better than everyone else, but in reality you are not, that will be counted as arrogant. And by now I think you would see the difference, how much of a difference it is between arrogance and talkative. So I wouldn't think that would be a problem if you were to become super duper talkative. You would just be talkative, not arrogant. So I don't think that would be a big problem. Now We have gone through why people have been struggling with communication, what good communication looks like, how to be good at communication, arrogance. What else? Alright. I think just you being able to speak out your mind alone, it shows a sense of respect. You are respecting someone, the people that you're talking to, because you are not hiding anything from them. That's what I believe. You are not setting any filters. You are telling him what you're thinking. You are telling him the things that your true opinions, and you want him to acknowledge that. This in turn would make them drop down their facade as well. Because people would feel it. People would feel if whether or not you're trying to please them, or whether or not you're giving them the straight stuff. So that itself shows that you're not afraid to be vulnerable. That itself, I think, is what makes someone more attractive and easier to talk to. Just you not hiding, not putting out a facade, just you being a true self, speaking out your mind. It makes you easy to talk to. So yeah, I think that's about it. Really. See you.